The central bank kicked off the year 2019 with stakeholders' intervention moves in the textiles and cotton sector and palm oil business. All these while the fiscal authorities were neck-deep into the February general elections. But the CBN did not slow down in the year. By the second week of December, the regulator was still firing on all cylinders.
The banking industry remains committed to the fact that we must play our own role towards catalyzing the Nigerian economy. We must remain strong participants that will help to create jobs by virtue of the responsibilities that have been imposed on us as financial catalysts in the Nigerian economy, and that we will play that role.
August 19, 2019, and just about 2 weeks into the inauguration of a new cabinet, the administration shuts its land borders across the Western Corridor. Those borders remain closed until year-end, a major fiscal action that rattled the economy and the people. Meantime, some ministries and agencies were readying a new offensive against low revenue generation, looking to raise taxes.
We're growing the tax penetration. It's not an easy tax to collect taxes in any economy. So the fact that just across different levels of business and individual, we're beginning to appreciate the enormity of the burden.
I, Muhammadu Buhari.
President Buhari has had a busy 2019. A few hours after his inauguration, the president headed to Saudi Arabia for a strategic meeting. His quest for scarce foreign direct investment and project deals also took him to China, Japan, Russia, and Egypt. Weak debt servicing are choking, fiscal deficit rising, higher minimum wage on the card, consumer spending is weak as economic growth underperforms the population. The odds are stacking up, and very fast.
Nigeria is having tremendous potential. You've got a young, growing population, tremendous resources, but to be entirely frank, Nigeria right now is yet to realize that potential.
Leading the front line of what some considered the bittersweet of 2019 was the central bank. The regulator rolls out a raft of unorthodox monetary policies targeting banks' credit, bank creditors, smugglers, investors in treasury bills, among others. On Broad Street, stocks bled nearly all year through, while Emefiele's CBN policy dragged yields to single digit on treasury bills, helping the government cut its local borrowing costs.
People will have to put on their thinking caps now to see how you want to structure funds, whether for projects, how you want to structure funds for SMEs that will give higher return than the current 4-5% yield.
The Buhari's administration added a few feathers to his cap in 2019, however. The New Year budget 2020 was delivered on schedule, and the country's ranking on ease of doing business went higher as the currency remained stable. But there's so much more in the outgoing year that will keep the president, his cabinet, and advisory team on their toes into the new year.
The policymakers are more stressed than the people in the sense that they have to deliver. We have to deliver, one. Two, if you don't deliver, the people won't believe you. And the worst thing to be is to be a leadership that has no credibility. So, from my own perception, there's a sense of determination, sense of urgency, and there's a passion to make sure that things turn around, especially because if people are suffering, you don't want the suffering to increase. I think that's what the president is saying. I am not going to sit over an increase in the suffering of the people.
Bosin Omafaye, Channels Television News.
All right, then, so we will turn our attention to the economy, and we've got the man who was writing about the borders and economic security. He's in Abuja. Mark?
Thank you, Chamberlain. Yes, we're trying to see if we could start a forecast. Well, first and foremost, assess how 2019 has done and see how we're moving into the new year. And we have with us Mr. Obadiah Mailafia, who is an economist and former deputy governor at the Central Bank of Nigeria. You're welcome to Sunrise Daily.
Thank you so much,
And compliments of the season to you.
Compliments of the season to you, Maope, and to our viewers.
And to our viewers, especially when they talk about how, you know, there's weak consumer spending.
Yes.
And one would have thought that, you know, in this period, maybe there'll be a little more consumer. Maybe we would see the effect, but we cannot measure it yet. Do you think we will?
Well, it's a festive season, and it provides a barometer for judging how the economy is doing and how consumers are seeing things. Obviously, there's a bit of dampening of morale. People complain of high prices of things like rice and the rest of it.
But they complain every year. I mean, the complaint is almost normal now.
Yes, indeed, but it makes a difference if you used to buy a bag of rice. You're a normal worker, used to buy a bag of rice for your family at 11,000. Now you have to buy it at 23, 24,000. Obviously, you can't say it's the same complaint all the time. There is a difference.
A significant difference,
Exactly.
especially when income has not gone up.
Absolutely. Even though, well, we are about to implement the salary increases, and hopefully that would slightly improve the morale of the people and and spending capacity, but that is into the future.
So what I would like us to do is break it down.
Yes.
And for a lot of people, the year has already ended, and some people do not like to assess how the year has gone in terms of finances,
Yes.
unless you're a company and you really have to see, just how much progress you have made. But generally, I think oftentimes people want to project
Yes.
into the new year.
Yes.
Going into the new year and looking at the challenges that we have come across this year, perhaps
Yes.
with some of the successes as well, how would you, when you break down the headaches which you see in the new year,
Sure.
both for government and for individuals,
Sure.
which ones would you say are the biggest challenges you see on the side of government and on the side of individuals?
Well, you said that you should take stock only if you're a company. One of my teachers, old teachers, used to say, look, when you start life, imagine yourself as a corporation. You're a one-man, one-woman corporation. So you have to take stock. It is part of the discipline of being a person who aims to succeed. You must always take stock and do a SWOT analysis, whether this is an individual, a family, a company, even a nation. Even a nation, you have to take stock. And, from the viewpoint of individuals, it's mixed. There are areas where I think, people have done reasonably well. Nigerians are very energetic people. They're very entrepreneurial. And whenever there are opportunities, they grab them. And what amazes me about our people is their extraordinary resilience and even a sense of humor under very difficult circumstances. There's a lot of suffering in the land, Maope. There's no way we can gloss over it. Yeah, we could, but the reality is that life has become more difficult for people. The economy is growing very slowly, and we'll be lucky to hit 2.2% this year. And while population has been growing by an average of 2.7%. So in net terms, we are growing negatively. The closure of the borders has had an impact on inflation, especially on certain staples, particularly rice. But with regard to the border, I support the government. It's not everything that we should criticize. When they do the right things, we should applaud it.
Yeah, the governor did say that they're a little optimistic that inflation rates will subside somewhat after a while.
Well, we're hoping so.
You share his hope?
It depends on what we do next. I mean, they've reduced the MPR for the first time in years from 14% fixed almost to now 13.5%. That is supposed to boost economic activities and boost borrowing to the real sector and so on and so forth. But, if we continue to allow the agrarian crisis to continue in terms of banditry, kidnapping, and violence in the rural countryside. It will undermine agriculture and food security. And food, as you know, makes up 60% of the basket of prices for the average Nigerian. So that might mean that inflation might continue to be a problem. And as you know, Fitch and Moody's have downgraded our economy, and to below investment grade. And what that means is that the cost of borrowing will be so much higher. And if we are pushed to a situation where some people are predicting that we might have no choice than to devalue the naira, of course that will throw everything out of
Well, there's a major headline this morning from the CBN saying they have no plans to do so. Do you think that's reassuring?
It is. It is okay to say this because that is what they're expected to say. But you can't be in control of everything. And as things evolve, they will have to respond. But it is good to send the right noises. But, if they are faced with an impossible situation, impossible scenario, because we are now using almost 60 naira out of every 100 we earn in servicing our debt. And if that continues, a lot of investors will have no confidence in our capacity to really, be solvent. And that would force us to, and then of course, if that happens, investors will slow down in bringing money into the country. That will affect the foreign reserves. The erosion of the foreign reserves will translate into less confidence for the naira, and that might force a kind of devaluation. So I'm hoping it doesn't happen, but let's just be realistic about the trends that are going on. And unemployment is rising. It is not going down. The real sector is very sluggish. And there's a lot of geopolitical uncertainty that will increase in the coming year. Within the ruling party, there are issues, and that might translate into, economic doldrums. Geopolitical uncertainty will slow down, have a dampening effect on business.
But sorry to interrupt you.
Yes.
I know that you have tried as much as possible to paint a very local picture of what is happening to us. But it would seem that even the general global forecast is not also very bright.
Indeed, that is very true. Slowdown in oil prices, the retreat from multilateralism, especially a la Trump, and the trade war with China has slightly, gone down, but it is still there. And failure to undertake international coordination among the great economic powers is going to undermine global governance and increase the risks of instability. There are flare-ups in the Gulf of Hormuz with Iran. That could affect global oil prices and trigger global inflation, and who knows what that might lead to. So yes, the global environment, and look at Brexit in Europe, that again is another major problem. And Prime Minister Boris Johnson has decided that he will have Brexit with or without conditions, with all the implications for economic stability within the Eurozone area and within Europe itself.
And the people of Britain are happy with it. I mean, they definitely voted with their feet, what he said in the last elections.
It is because Labour did not offer them. Jeremy Corbyn is a great man, great heart, great mind, but he does not have an electable persona, and he looks too far to the left. And so people say, look, you know, this all 4G, let's just go for Boris Johnson. People like people who are theatrical, who can act. And let's face it, Boris Johnson is an actor, like all good politicians are. And he has, you know, bluffed his way to this position. And so, you know, the Tories have it, and let's see whether they make the best of it. But a lot of people are also saying that that might be the unraveling of the final embers of the British Empire, that once we're told the British Empire never set, and with Brexit, Scotland might decide to revive their referendum. Wales, Scotland, and even the Irish prefer to be in Europe. So that might lead to the disintegration of the United Kingdom of Great Britain, and all you will have is Little England ruled by a man called Boris Johnson, who doesn't have a family, and so on.
We will see how that eventually pans out. I mean, those are all the things you're looking at in 2020. There's also you talked about the price of crude.
Yes.
We have kept ours, you know, the benchmark price at $57. The
Yes.
CBN is not very happy. I mean, the MPC, they're not very, very excited with that price. They think that it's provided very little buffer between our benchmark and the current price of crude on the international market.
Yes.
Do you share their fears, their anxieties with the price as we have it for the 2020 budget?
Well, indeed, I think I agree with my former colleagues. And don't forget, the government had put it much lower. It was the National Assembly that increased it.
By $2?
Yes.
From 55 to 57.
Yes, indeed. Okay, yes, indeed. But even $1 can make a difference, you know. And but generally, I don't think that is right. National Assembly shouldn't be in the business of running the country. It should be the government, the executive. Their role is oversight and making laws. And we shouldn't go into that kind of confusion. So it's risky, but in the coming year, a lot of things could happen. If we begin to see more recovery in East Asia and stronger, robust performance in China, it could lead to increased oil prices, which will be good for us. And also, it is not good to wish anybody any evil, obviously. But if the situation worsens against Iran and it leads to a standoff with the United States, we could benefit indirectly by higher oil prices. So we wait and see how these things will pan out.
I'm looking at all the geopolitical risks here.
Yes.
We're talking about an escalations of tensions in the Middle East. We do not know how it's gone between Iran and Saudi Arabia, especially with the attack on their oil facilities.
Yes.
In fact, Nigeria did express fears after Saudi was attacked that if they're that sophisticated and, they were susceptible to that sort of attack, we don't know what could happen to us. Maybe it was just a very cautious statement so that, we're not saying as celebrating, we don't know. However, we do not know how that is going to affect what is going to what happen with oil prices, going into 2020. And there's a big talk now, or there's big talk around diversification. That we cannot continue to depend on oil. And so you have all of the investments we've been pouring into agriculture. Do you think that we've done enough? Or are you seeing concerted efforts to ensure that whatever seeds we have sown this year, that we could be seeing yields in 2020?
Well, two aspects. I mean, I don't know about Saudi's sophistication. They're just a feudal country.
Well, that's what the statement said.
Yeah, it's a feudal country run by a family, run by one family. The Al Saud, the House of Al Saud, and.
Yeah, I'm talking about their defense system.
Their defense system.
Their defense mechanism.
That's the point I'm making. It's a feudal country run by one monarchy, by one family. And in 1973, Henry Kissinger, American Foreign Secretary of State, brokered a deal with them where they will fix the price of oil only in American dollars. It will be the currency of transaction, and in exchange, they will have the security cover of the United States. That has been the compact that has kept the Saudi system going until today. So without American protection, they will be exposed. And Iran is a strong and growing power with ambitions of its own to also leverage on the Shiite communities that almost 60% of the Iraqi population, also about 20% of the Saudi population, with significant chunks in Qatar and other places. So, that is an area that might lead to increasing tension in future. As for us, well, what are the seeds we have sown that, because the Holy Book says everybody will reap what they sow? We have sown some good seeds and we have sown some very bad seeds. The good seeds we've sown include, greater commitment to fighting corruption. I support the government on that. Increasing the percentage and the ratio going into capital spending is now getting to almost 35–40%. I support that. I think it is a good thing. Setting up an economic advisory council, I think it is a good thing, even though we've heard nothing from them since they were set up. I would only...
Should we be hearing from them? Shouldn't that be for the president?
Well, when you run a country and you're an economic team, from time to time, communication is very important. You see, because we live in the age of rational expectations economics, that people are rational actors, people are intelligent decision makers, as businesses, as families, as individual investors. So they need to anchor their expectations on what is happening.
So on the whole,
communication is important. So I would say, yes, we've sown some good seeds, but there are some very bad seeds we've sown. A lot of the time, people look away when murders are being committed, when brutality, killings are taking place. But we're not doing enough to fix the security problem. And it will come back to haunt us. It will haunt the government. It will haunt our country, because we are not
totally out of time.
Doing the right things.
Mr. Mailafia, I know that, it's the end of the year and it's a new year is coming and people will want to be optimistic, regardless,
But I'm a humble economist, and we are taught
the reality. I know.
No, we're even taught to be pessimistic.
Oh, okay.
Until we have good reason to be optimistic.
You just heard it from the viewpoint of an economist. Mr. Obadiah Mailafia is an economist, former deputy governor of the CBN. I have to say, though, that your viewpoint on Boris Johnson and his family is yours.
Well, I'm just saying he's a bachelor. Oh. In our African culture, you wouldn't really want your leader, your president, to have no family.
Okay, well, we have to leave it there, sir.
I'm just being...
Sorry, Stella will continue in a moment. Please stay with us.
All right, so let's wind down. We've got some feedback from you. We've got an email from Akonjilaya Husa is talking about aviation, which is what we started out with. What is the Consumer Protection Council doing to protect the hapless consumers in the hands of the airline operators? The operators should start being penalized for delays and cancellations. He says it's his humble opinion.
Incidentally, we raised this issue last week. This one is a tweet from Musa Mohammed. Says, Nigeria's education sector, we tackle everything wrongly. I tell you, if we want to get it right in the education sector, just enhance the standard of living of teachers and watch how our quality of education will grow. Infrastructure comes after standard of living is improved.
Sir. Well, we have this one from Ajulu Charles, who says education system, talking about education system in Nigeria, says poor quality teacher could stem from lecturers who abandon their job for either chasing contracts in government houses or traveling out of the country for private engagements. Oh, that's from Ajulu Charles.
Oh, wow, look at this one. Okay, yeah, it might as well.
Is for, well, it's also about Nigeria's education sector. Truly, state universities are poorly funded. How can lecturers give their best when salaries are not paid? Continues on and on.
Well, yeah, so we appreciate all of those thoughts. Just keep them coming through. Well, that is it for today in any case. We'll see you tomorrow. I'm Chamberlain. So.
I'm Ayo Makinde. Have a wonderful day.
And I'm Maupe Ogun Yusuf. Stay blessed.